and today we are going to discuss the interview Tucker Carlson did with the uh, ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, and hope hopefully we'll cover Iran, give y'all an update on that as well. We'll see where the episode goes, but if any of the viewers have not yet watched the interview Tucker Carlson conducted with Mike Huckabee, I strongly suggest you do because I've never seen it's almost unbelievable how slavish Mike Huckabee is towards the state of Israel. It's something that you would almost expect to be a caricature of reality, but no, he is in fact just such a slavish devotee to Israel that uh, I mean, at times in this interview, he was admonishing the U.S. government and saying basically that the U.S. government should aspire to be more like Israel. So it just insane. But any initial thoughts before we kind of go point by point, Wyatt?
No, I kind of had a similar reaction. There was a couple of points where I felt like Huckabee, unrelated to actually the state of Israel, whenever they were talking about the Epstein files, I was kind of on Mike Huckabee's side, and I'll explain why once we get to that. But as far as like Tucker Carlson and questioning him on like the persecution of Christians and the bombing of civilians and children and all of that, and then honestly just our militant policy in the Middle East being driven by um, the Israeli government, like it seemed like you said, it was almost shocking, and it was shocking to me. And we'll cover this in the point by point part too, how like where Mike Huckabee was getting his justification from. Because like there's we like to joke in the United States that Iran and Saudi Arabia, they're these Islamic fascists who rule by, Sharia law. But we have our ambassador to Israel telling us that they have support for greater Israel based on a book in the Old Testament, Genesis, right? He talks about Judea and Samaria, and that's literal theocracy. You know what I mean? like that's I was blown away at his justification for that. But anyway, I don't want to. I'll get bogged down if I go any further, so I'll just kick it back to you, and we can start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, let's just go in. My list is a little out of order, but
Sure.
I have a list kind of just point by point on things that happened, and then I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let's zone in on that. One of the first things, again, my list isn't in perfect chronological order of the interview, but one of the first things that caught my attention was, you know, Mike Huckabee played dumb when Tucker brought up the Israeli. He's some kind of official. He's like a cybersecurity official that got caught in a sting in the U.S. and he fled to Israel and basically he's not going to be extradited to the U.S. and uh, obviously Mike Huckabee can't defend that, but he played as if he didn't know that that happened. So he's just running cover for the
Which
Israeli government.
which is a common theme when it comes to the Israeli government, like the people who feel like they have to back the Israeli government or the Israeli lobbying force. Like for example, do you remember that interview forever ago with Gavin Newsom where he's like APAC? APAC, what is APAC again? I've never talked. What is this OPEC? I thought it was pronounced OPEC. Like he just played dumb because he didn't want to have the tough conversation. That's what I feel like Huckabee was doing here. He was like, I'm completely unaware of this. What would you say? This is a question for the DOJ. Like it was insane.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, because this guy, he didn't actually molest or statutory rape a young girl, but he was caught in a sting. He wanted to. He had every intent to do so, and but I guess if you're an Israeli, you get a free pass. That one, there's not much to expound on. It's or opine on. It's just so disturbing
The
that
absurdity.
yeah, yeah. The next thing, though, the next point, and this was relatively early into the interview, if not the first thing Tucker Carlson broached, uh, he Mike Huckabee had met with Jonathan Pollard, which, if the viewers don't know, this was a literally an Israeli spy who leaked secrets to Israel during kind of like the Cold War era, and
To the
then those
Soviets, right? Sold our
yeah, and then
secrets to the Soviets.
those secrets got leaked to the Soviets from the Israelis. I believe that was the chain of information dissemination. I could be wrong. He might have leaked it directly to the Soviets. But this is a guy who relatively recently has publicly said that all Jews in foreign nations should spy against their host nation, and he's even said like Israel should like Samson option like the world if they don't get what they want. So this is like a crazy dude, and all around like a terrible person who is totally set against the Americans, and has actually done harm to the U.S. Uh, and Mike Huckabee met with him, and they had uh, basically it seems to be an amicable conversation. So it's like Huckabee was just unwilling to 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 give any like forceful condemnation of him. It seems like he wasn't offended by Mr. Pollard in the slightest, to be honest.
And this is also a common theme, right? Because when Tucker interviewed Ted Cruz, if you remember, Tucker Carlson was like, "Do you think that Mossad is spying on the U.S.?" And Tucker's like, "Oh, probably." And it's like, what? Like, how is that even? How are you able to say that and not be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa"? Like, if it came out that like MI6 or like French intelligence was spying on the U.S. government, don't you think that like we should have a problem with that? Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
just, and then like you said, he just seemed like he tried to duck, obfuscate, deflect everything Tucker said. Mike Huckabee did. He was like, I didn't have him over for dinner. He was like, I took a meeting. You could schedule an appointment, and and it's like, dude, what are you even talking about? Like this is insane. And then like you said, he was never able to say the words like I condemn what he did. He should be in jail forever. Like it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I mean, this guy got off very easy. He had a 30-year sentence. Uh, Honestly, someone like this that does something so egregious, honestly, I think, spies put to death. I think that would be a very good policy. I can't believe he's around walking. Uh, it's disgusting. But so, just to start, this is how the interview started, like on these two notes. So, if it isn't already clear that Huckabee is a total slave, it should be to the viewer by now. But I think probably some of the more interesting stuff, though, kind of happens later. And this is the stuff that got Huckabee and into some like international trouble. It actually was a big kind of a not really an international crisis, but it caused a stir. There was a line in there. Tucker is questioning Huckabee. he said, what is, you claim that there's a theological basis for Israel. They have a right to this land because of the Bible. Well, in the Bible, Abraham was promised the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. So, we're talking about literally from Egypt to Iraq is what,
Basically, right.
yeah. And so, a massive chunk of the Middle East. I mean, if you look at a map and I mean, that's probably, I don't know, like a third of all of it. I mean, it's an incredibly large chunk, if not more, if not like half. And uh, and Tucker basically just asks Huckabee straight up, like, do you think that the Jews are have a claim to all that land? And Huckabee says, well, I think it would be fine if they took it all. They basically,
Oh, but
and
how thankful we should be that Mike Huckabee pointed out, but they aren't even asking for that. The Israeli government. How kind of them. They're not even, you know what I mean?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's like, and so of course this caused just a total. This was like a total PR disaster because this got the Saudis, the Jordanians, the Lebanese, the Syrians, the Egyptians. It got all of them enraged because, I mean, again, we're talking about literally all of their land here, a huge chunk of Saudi Arabia and the whole greater Israel conception, like probably most of Lebanon.
Yeah, just to button down really quick, like why this is a big deal that he said this. This is probably, I mean, Mike Huckabee is not just some podcaster or some Fox News host. Like he is the ambassador to Israel from the United States. This is arguably the single most important position in the Middle East, right? In terms of like, foreign policy envoys, right?
Oh, yeah.
Um, and he went on basically international media and screamed that it actually would be perfectly okay if Israel decided to conquer parts of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Lebanon, parts of Syria, Jordan, right? It, it's no wonder that the Islamic Brotherhood or the Muslim Brotherhood took offense to this as they should, right? So like I just feel like it's important to button down that like this wasn't like you and I said this. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
was the single highest ranking diplomat in the region said this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just insane. Um,
On the
and
basis of biblical prophecy, right? Or not, I shouldn't say prophecy, of a biblical covenant. So,
yeah. Yeah. And like basically his interpretation of some verses in Genesis. I mean, there are others as well, but the early parts of Genesis is definitely what he was reading into, and that Huckabee has. It was kind of interesting though, because I'm going to have to give the devil his due, Huckabee, that is, on some things. So, Huckabee gave both a biblical or theological basis for the state of Israel, or the right of the Jewish people to claim land in the Levant, but he also gave like an ethnic justification. He was like, okay, well, this is kind of like a land back program in a way because these people are the descendants of the people who were forced out, in like 70 AD when, Titus expelled the Jews from Jerusalem. So, if anything, these are the indigenous people. And, Tucker was like, oh, well, Netanyahu, he's Polish or, Eastern European, and, his roots are not with, uh, yeah, he doesn't have real roots here in the Middle East. And I gotta say, I'm kind of a bit mixed on that argument. On one hand, I do get what people are getting at when they say that, the modern Jews inhabiting the nation of Israel are Eastern Europeans and they're not, in fact, Jewish. I understand the argument because, I mean, plainly, these people are not fully Jewish. They're not fully Middle Eastern. It's just obvious by their phenotype. But at the same time, I think this is like a left wing argument that really isn't too grounded in reality. I think this is in many ways an argument that seeks to shift blame for atrocities perpetuated by the Israelis back upon white people, when I just don't think that's fair because, again, like we can look at like the DNA tests of Israelis, and there's going to be some variance, but by and large, you're going to probably get something that's like 50% Levantine, you know, and then 50% Eastern European, and that'll probably be, especially among the lighter skinned Jews. That's probably, not the like Mizrahi or anything like that. I mean, that's probably what you're going to get. So, I mean, these people are linked with the people that were expelled in 70 AD. Make no, don't be fooled. I mean, these people do have a connection. It's just they're very far removed from it, or at least they were up until the 20th century. So, but what do you think about that? Are you in favor of like arguments like that, where it's like, oh, these people are Eastern Europeans, so they really have no claim, or
Yeah,
do you
I
quibble with it?
am I am more on that side. I think whenever you start talking about like ancestral homelands, like I think we get to a pretty scary place. Like whenever you're talking about like, oh, should all Native Americans have a right to demolish homes in Southeast America, right? Because their ancestors lived there for however many years, right? I mean, I don't think that that's valid, right? Do you? I mean, do you think that like gypsies can go back to Romania and start kicking down doors of people because it's their ancestral home? Like, no, I don't really think that that's how the world should work, right? And I've never understood this claim that like because it's the ancestral homeland of the Jews. Well, the Jews, even according to the Bible, are not the first people there, right? I mean, they had to do genocide to make it their land, actually. So, um,
Uh, oh yeah, I mean
according to the Bible,
Abraham
anyway.
is yeah, I mean Abraham started out in what is it, Ur of the Chaldeans.
Right,
So I mean that's like southern Iraq, I think.
right,
Yeah,
and so
roughly.
so there were people there, right, before. So, like, if we do this infinite regress, I don't think that that makes sense. Like the fact of the matter is that these are modern states. There are people there. You can't expel people there. First of all, I also think that the Palestinians there definitely have just as much of an ancestral tie to the land. They are true Semites, you know? This is just my opinion. If you're going to tell me, Wyatt, Jews born in Brooklyn and Latvia and Poland have a right to a land in Palestine, then I think that at least Palestinians should have a right to the land in Palestine. That's really my position.
Oh yeah, I would imagine that roughly they all have similar like Levantine, uh, you know, ancestry, admixture. I'm sure the Palestinians have a far higher degree of Arab admixture, so they're racially they're obviously different, but I would imagine both of these groups probably have a similar amount of uh, admixture of Levantine, Canaanite esque type people that from so long ago. So yeah, I do agree with you on that point. I think my main contention with arguments like this is that it's almost like shifting blame upon this is something the left does. I feel like they try to shift blame for atrocities committed in Gaza from the Jews back onto white people by claiming that the Jews are just white people and not Jewish at all. And so I quibble with it for that reason, because I do think that, obviously, I mean, these people are visibly, Jewish. I mean, there is a phenotype associated.
Right, but I don't necessarily think that that's really relevant. I mean, I'm less concerned with the race of the people doing it and more concerned with the government of the people because, I don't think that the IDF represents most of the Jews in the world, right? Even though they might represent like, Ben Shapiro makes this claim all the time like it doesn't really matter if Benjamin Netanyahu was the prime minister or if some other party in Israel, like Gaza was going to have basically hell rain down on it, right? And to some extent, I really do agree with that. Like, there is mass support for this war, this genocide, in my opinion, in Gaza. But I don't, I don't really see the relevance of what you said, where it's like, if we acknowledge these people as Europeans, then that almost like changes the framing to anti-white. I mean, I don't even really know if I buy that, to be honest with you, but maybe it's because I don't understand. I'm really not sure why it matters the race of the people who do it.
I just don't want my favored and my favorite group, the whites, to be harmed by rhetoric, uh, from the left, you know, seeking to shift blame.
Okay, but
Maybe it's not even worth narrowing in on, but uh, yeah, it's just something I've seen, and I'm like, okay, I mean, these people are not, I wouldn't call Netanyahu white. Uh, to me, he's visibly Jewish,
interesting. See, for me,
but
it doesn't matter. For that's interesting because for me, it wouldn't matter. Um,
but I mean, but that goes back to like Huckabee's claim. It's like he gives both like a religious and an ethnic claim. So on some level, their ethnicity does matter. I mean, and that's why Tucker Carlson, made the argument because he sought to discredit the very concept that they are ethnically Jewish, because he almost implied that they're religiously Jewish only, and ethnically just Eastern European.
no,
That
see, I thought
seemed to
he, I
be
thought he made, I thought he made the opposite claim. I thought he made the claim that these people might be ethnic Jews, but they were religiously atheist and secular, or, and then they just immigrated. So, like he said, Netanyahu's not religious in any meaningful way, right? So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he said because Tucker kind of goes back and forth on this one. I thought, but it didn't seem to me like he was dismissing the fact that these people. He didn't say that these people aren't even Jews, right? He just said that like they are Eastern European. Like you acknowledge that, right?
yeah. Well. Tucker kind of made both arguments. So he on one hand he was saying, well, they're not really religiously Jewish; they're just ethnically. And then in another instance, while arguing with Huckabee, he said, well, they're religiously Jewish, but they're not uh, necessarily, all that ethnically Jewish. So he seemed to make both arguments. So this was some Tucker sophistry uh, in
Boy, and
play.
he's good at it, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's very good at it. He's
The
very good at it.
sophistry is next level. I mean, it's actually he's incredibly talented. So I encourage if you're like a high school debater, trying to figure out how to win amongst like I would say medium to low information spectators, like Tucker Carlson's your guy.
Yeah, I mean Tucker. I kind of, in many ways, I don't really like Tucker, but I will, totally give credit to him. I favor him over Huckabee, but he eviscerated Huckabee in this exchange. But back to his sophistry. This is another thing. So Tucker will be incredibly. I don't want to say inconsistent, but if you examine like with some scrutiny, many of Tucker's arguments, it's like they kind of fall apart uh, as he's saying it. So he brought up the case of the Amalekites against Huckabee. He referenced a speech Netanyahu made in which Netanyahu compared the Palestinians to the Amalekites,
Amalek.
and mm-hmm, yeah, and basically the Amalekites, if I'm not wrong, they're descendants of Esau, or yeah, at the very least, they're a nation of people set against Israel, and there was some conflict that arose, and God commanded the Israelites to slay every living thing uh, among the Amalekite city, I guess. And so basically, God ordered the genocide, is what.
Right, yeah. Men, women, children, even the property, right? So for example, livestock, donkeys, literally everything was called for by God to be killed. And when they didn't do it, when they failed to do it, they were punished. That's how serious it was. So, not a
Yeah,
softball for genocide.
yeah. And then Tucker was like, so do you think he basically said to Huckabee, do you think it's appropriate to call anyone an Amalekite? Because you're basically insinuating that it's okay to genocide these people. And on one hand, I agree with Tucker, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, Tucker, this is your Bible too. So, I mean, Tucker at the very least claims to be a Christian. So in many ways, I'm like, eh, on some level, this is sophistry because it's like, okay, you believe that basically that's all fine and dandy as well, Tucker. So, I mean, what's even your point here? Uh, I mean, I get his point, but I don't know. It's just something that annoys me about Tucker's manner of argumentation is the fakeness of it. I hate the affect he puts on where uh, he sounds so jovial almost, but I just there's like this level of condescension hidden just right underneath, and Huckabee was doing it too, but Tucker's is like very distinct, and I don't know. Tucker just kind of annoys me, even
Yeah,
though I more or less agree with them on this issue.
yeah, right. But did you think that Mike Huckabee's answers about like, first of all, don't you just, hypocrisy aside from Tucker, right? About whether or not he believes that the genocide of the Amalekites was justified because it was ordained by God. Let's make no mistake about that, according to the scriptures, right? Hypocrisy aside, do you not agree with like at least like if we were to take the hypocrisy at face value, like that is deeply irresponsible for Netanyahu to say that, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, because in
Like
some ways,
you're talking about him calling a little strip of land that is 50% children, right? You're talking about that. You're going to call them Amalek and you're going to call for their utter destruction. Like how, like, listen, I feel like we're just kind of, we're nitpicking here, right? On Tucker a little, like that was your issue with Tucker Carlson during this interview. I can't believe, I'm just a little shocked. So,
oh, I mean, make no mistake. I mean, I'm definitely, I mean, Tucker eviscerated Huckabee, but it's so plain for anyone who watches it to to see that that Tucker won that exchange handily, just obviously. So it's almost, I mean, I could just sit here and say, Tucker won on this point and this point and this point. But, I think it is interesting to point out where I do disagree with Tucker and where I find Tucker uh, perhaps a little disingenuous. So, I just kind of say it for the
yeah,
sake of.
I'm sure his motives, and and I'll get to that right now, unless there's more you'd like to say on this specific issue.
Oh, no, no, go on, go on.
Yeah, so Tucker and talking about like how genuine he is and how authentic he is. Like I feel like he's mostly putting on a character. I can tell some of the stuff he actually genuinely cares about. But there's also a context in which he would never bring up things. So like the stuff he said to Mike Huckabee, is stuff he would not say to Trump, even though Trump is the one basically giving Huckabee the marching orders or the opportunity to, you know, support this genocide or whatever. Like whatever he thinks Mike Huckabee is guilty of, Trump is equal to be guilty of, right? Specifically, and Mike Huckabee brought this up on the Epstein files, right? It was one of the earliest parts of the interview. And Mike Huckabee, he says, Tucker, like this sounds like this is really important to you. Have you brought this up to the president? And Tucker, I don't know if you watched it live or listened to it. If you look at Tucker's face, he's like, oh shit, shit, shit. Nobody, you're not supposed to tell me that, or you're not supposed to tell the world that I have an audience with the president whenever I want. You're not supposed to tell the world that. And Mike Huckabee's like, you're best friends with JD Vance, you're best friends with Cash Patel, and you know Pam Bondi, and you know President Trump. He's like, why don't you bring this up to them? Like, what am I gonna do? I'm the U.S. ambassador to Israel. And Tucker is just like flabbergasted. Like he doesn't understand the question. And that to me exposes like the authenticity because if Huckabee is right in this scenario, at least in my opinion, like if Tucker had a serious problem with the Epstein files being handled, then why would you not go straight to the man at the top who you have a personal relationship? Tucker Carlson could call him on the phone and he doesn't do it. And he doesn't call him out in public because he know it's not in his best interest.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I made note of that as well. There were probably 3 or 4 instances in their conversation where Tucker basically had to say, I love Trump. I love Trump. I'm not criticizing Trump here. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, Tucker is just completely unable to criticize the man himself. But it's just like you said. I mean, if anything, Trump is the most responsible party in terms, or I shouldn't say responsible, maybe the most culpable party in all of these foreign affairs. So, if anyone is worthy of criticism, it's the man himself, Trump. But for whatever reason, even though Tucker has immense access, he is unable to criticize Trump. So
Right.
I agree that at least on that point, uh, Huckabee won that part of the
Right. And
argument.
and when
Made
and
Tucker.
when Tucker Carlson goes on and he attacks, Cash Patel for his handling of the Charlie Kirk shooting, and when he attacks Pam Bondi for her handling of the Epstein files, or Mike Huckabee for the way Christians are persecuted or the genocide in Gaza. He is indirectly shielding the president of the United States from accountability, right? And it almost removes agency from, like you said, the guy that is the most responsible. He sets the agenda for these people. Like it, and he knows that. To the audience who is like, well, maybe he did. Tucker is trying to play the fool, and he is not. He is not some hick from Maine. All right, this is an Ivy educated Nepo baby. All right. Like, I'm not gonna sit
Oh
here
yeah.
and let you talk about him like he's not you, like he's Joe Rogan. He's not. Okay, this is not somebody who is misread or misinformed on this issue. He knows damn well who's responsible for all of the stuff I just mentioned, and he doesn't have the balls to say it out loud. He just doesn't. So, anyway,
Yeah, I
go ahead.
Tucker is I don't know what to make of him because obviously this whole country everyman shtick he has it is it's a total facade. We it's very well documented what he is. He is a nepo baby, and he is someone with immense access in Republican circles. He could get an audience with Trump probably at any time. So I think what Tucker represents uh, is something like he's part of the establishment, I would say, but there are factions within the establishment. And the establishment is kind of a nebulous term, but he's someone who is connected and is a mover and shaker in terms of how our government works, I would say. And I think he represents a faction that is perhaps Israel critical, not willing to be perhaps too hard on them, but maybe is a restrainer or something, or someone who wants to put limits on how involved we are in the Middle East. Maybe he's one of these that he wants to perhaps pivot to Asia. Maybe that's his thing. I don't know, but I think he's part of the security establishment in some way or another. And I think he advocates for maybe Middle Eastern stability through his show, whatever way he can, because he's really linked up. He's linked up with the Qataris somehow. Uh, to what extent I don't know. I couldn't say, but I mean he is just incredibly friendly with them. I mean he did an interview with the Qatari head of state last year. He owns a home in Doha, I believe. So there's something there. I don't know what it is. I don't know that he's pro Iran or anything, but there's so much. There's so much money uh, from foreign governments that flows into the U.S. I wouldn't be surprised if Tucker kind of represents maybe Qatari interests somehow, or maybe a faction within the establishment right that is just wants to pivot to Asia or pivot to Latin America. He's something, but he's certainly not what he says he is.
Well, and it's hard for me to imagine that he wants to be like a major, like, geopolitical player, right? Like, I don't think I do you think his ambitions are to be like Henry Kissinger? Like, I really don't think so. You know what I mean? Like, where he's like formulating the American foreign policy plan for the next 60 years. I doubt it. If anything, it could just be cash grabs or grifting at the ultimate. And listen, who knows, right? But I tell you this, I do not buy that he's being 100% genuine. I think we agree on on that. And maybe he's being bought. I don't know. I just couldn't tell you by who. I mean, it could be American corporations. It could be maybe he's just scamming his fans. It could be the Russians. It could be the Qataris. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be anything, and yeah, it's impossible to say, but nevertheless, he's not what he says he is. But uh all let's kind of switch subjects slightly. All of this is kind of in the context of a looming war with Iran, which I think the American people at this point understand uh, pretty much completely that war with Iran would basically just be a war for Israel. It is a war for Israel's interests and not America's interests. Full stop. A case really has not even been made to the American public about how this might benefit us. I could maybe pull something out of my butt and give you a justification. I think it would be flimsy, but even that has not been given. I mean, have you seen a justification given
Uh,
by?
I mean, the one Mike Huckabee gave was something that like uh the the Iranians have terrorist cells in he said like 14 countries in the Western Hemisphere, and Tucker Carlson just literally like went, "Who gives a fuck?" Dude, like he literally was
Yeah.
like, nobody buys this." And so I agree with you. Like they're not even. At least Bush had the balls to lie, like at least Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I feel like we've been teased a lot with war with Iran, but the military buildup at this point is not something that I feel like you can just ignore. At this point, you're talking about something like a 40% of air assets owned by the U.S. are in that region now, which is not standard, not at all. They're normally in Southeast Asia. It's unbelievable, actually, how much buildup is going on there, and it's not for show. Like we don't do this for show. It costs too much fucking money, and like you said, they're not even really gonna try to sell us on this. If they were smart, they would have done. They're gonna do this after the midterms, but that doesn't appear to happen either.
Yeah, I mean, my guess, because it's incredibly unpopular, and in Tucker and Huckabee's exchange, they said something like it was basically an 80-20 issue, 20% of Americans supporting war with Iran, and 80% roughly not in support of
I
war with
disagree
Iran.
with Tucker on this, by the way, but go ahead and finish your point. We'll come back to it.
Oh, you don't believe that statistic?
No, not with fucking Republicans. Are you out of your fucking mind? I mean, if if you
Oh
would have
well, yeah,
if you would have
certainly not with the Republicans, but
if you would have asked Republicans like, "Hey, do you think that like a a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities is a good idea?" Probably would have been 60-40 no, right? And if you would have said like, "Hey, do you think it's probably a good idea to do a decapitation strike on Venezuela?" 80% probably would have said no, right? And then if you would have said, "Do you think that global international tariffs at upwards of 150% are a good idea?" Probably 80% would have said no. But then as soon as Trump implements it, then they just buy it. You know what I mean? So that
well,
statistic that says that like, oh, 20% of Americans, that's all who would be in support of this war. I guarantee you, Darren. I guarantee you, if Trump were to start that decapitation strike tonight, his support would double over on the particular issue. I guarantee it.
well,
Just out of herd mentality.
I do think there's an element of that is accurate in the sense that if Trump is for it, then his most diehard supporters will learn to love it. But I mean, I think 80%, that might be a little high, but of the entire American public, it's probably not a terrible estimate. I mean, you got to think, probably most all Democrats, like the vast majority, probably nearing 90%, are against war with Iran. And then you got to think a majority, probably not an ultra majority, but probably a majority of independents are against war with Iran. I could see maybe 70%, 60, 70% of independents being against it, and then maybe 30 to 40% of Republicans being against it. So I think 80%, it's probably within the realm of how many people are against it, or at least don't favor it. So
It's same thing, that happened in Iraq, like you got to keep in mind we didn't go to Iraq until 2 years after 9/11, right? So it's one of those things that once the war propaganda gets moving, which it will, if we launch a strike on Iran and the propaganda gets going, people will eat it up. Maybe not. Listen, I'm not saying it's going to be a 50-50 issue. I'm just saying it's probably going to be 60-40, 60 against, 40 support, or maybe two-thirds to a third. But anyway, that's irrelevant because I do ultimately agree with your broader point, which is that it will definitely be a loser for the president. It's not a winner, a policy winner, and it will definitely hurt him. So I didn't mean to derail you, but I just wanted to mention how low of an opinion I have on these people. So
oh no, you're
who will just switch their original opinions at the instant that Trump changes his opinion.
no, you're fine. And yeah, I mean, the numbers are whatever. I mean, yeah, the point, yeah, like you said, the point is it's not popular, but that is why I think a strike or some kind of action is probably going to happen pretty soon, because if he waits too long, like maybe 3 months in the future, maybe that will be too close to the midterms, and then the whole Iran debacle will still be on everybody's mind by that time, and people will take their anger out in the voting booth. So I think he'll probably move swiftly and try to get whatever he does over with. Probably within the month. At this point, I'd say by the end of March, probably would not be unreasonable. And I think it'll probably be something. I don't know if it'll be like, I'm kind of thinking like decapitation strikes, or maybe strikes to like destroy their air defense. So that way we can do like what we've done to Syria on them, where basically they have no way of shooting hostile planes down, so you can just bomb them at will. I think that might be something we would do against them. That way, the Israelis could just constantly fly over them and, you know, bomb targets, and nothing could be done to stop them. I could see that. I could all, decapitation strikes. I could see them assassinating the supreme leader and as many jurists and high level officials as possible to just totally destabilize things. But then again, maybe we'll do something like we did with Venezuela. Like maybe Venezuela was a trial run for, killing the supreme leader. And then maybe, it's not even regime change at that point. It's more of like an administration alteration. So instead of dealing with the supreme leader, maybe we're just dealing with Pezeshkian or whatever comes after the supreme leader. Maybe whatever comes after will be more compliant if they know we can just kill them at any minute. I don't know. But what do you think? What's I mean, maybe it's silly to make predictions because ultimately we don't know, but do you have any other possibilities for what might occur within the next few months or something?
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt of our capabilities. I mean, I think Venezuela kind of proved that. Like, I mean, it is kind of, in a sense, badass, right? Like, we can go capture and kill basically any human being on the planet if we know where you are, right? So, I don't doubt our capabilities. We could do like we did in Iraq, because a lot of people don't know this. We actually dropped more, bombs, like in terms of like megatons and kilotons, right, than we did in the entire Second World War. So, like, we sent Iraq into the fucking Stone Age over 2 weeks, right? um, destabilized an entire country. And then the hard part is the problem with air campaigns is that like you can't really occupy just from the air. Like at some point, like you're gonna have to have Marines go kicking down doors. And Iran is a country, it's got like 90-ish million people, right? Like it's not it's bigger than fucking Iraq, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not optimistic about a lot. And then, like, listen, I'm just pessimistic, right? I understand that our military is the biggest and the baddest and the strongest and all of that. But at the end of the day, like, it's not like Iran is just going to sit down and take it lying down, right? Like, and they have real capabilities, right? They can light up oil fields, right? Like that they share with the Qataris. Like, that's what they vowed to do, actually, and that will drive the price of oil through the fucking roof, right? Not just for, people in the Middle East or people who buy their oil, for the whole global price of oil will shoot through the fucking roof. So that wouldn't be good. As well as there's something like 100,000 troops, or maybe it's no, I'm sorry. I think it's 20,000 ish troops in the region that are within striking distance of Iran. So
Yeah, and they're all incredibly vulnerable because, these military bases, they don't have like the Iron Dome or other mechanisms of shooting down missiles like the state of Israel does. So,
well, Israel is far more protected than any of these soldiers, unless they're in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. But you're talking about like in bases in Qatar, bases in Iraq, like that they are completely exposed. There's nothing that we can do to stop them. And for those of you who think that that's bullshit, that's not true. I know because they did it, and the only reason they didn't kill a U.S. soldier is because they warned the Qataris, like, "Hey, you need to tell the United States to get these fucking troops out of here. This is just for show," right? Um,
yeah, that
which
happened last year after the
And we're
bombing.
incentivizing, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll hand it back. But we are incentivizing them to start the nuclearization process again. They would be madmen if it would be irresponsible for them not to be pursuing that option at this point. To be, like none of it makes any sense. And I tell you what, that that sounds dangerous. A nuclear powered Iran, yeah, that sounds fucking dangerous, but it's not because they wanted to do it. I mean, we pushed them to it, you know?
Yeah, I on some level, I don't know if how many. I mean, I think we have definitely set them back. I I imagine they probably don't have access to a lot of their centrifuges and the nuclear material they've produced thus far because of our strikes. So, but it's one of these things. Ultimately, nobody knows. We don't know the state of play. So it is a scary prospect, the idea of yet another country getting a nuke. The good thing is, even if they got a nuke, I don't think they currently have the technology to reach us, like to
No,
miniaturize.
no. Yeah, no, they don't have ICBMs. There's no chance. So,
Yeah, they would have to buy some from Russia.
yeah. And
So
we're not actually even sure that they have the capabilities to turn it into a even just a regular ballistic missile. Like that's kind of like Scott Horton. I don't know if you know him. He's like a libertarian guy, podcaster.
yeah, I've heard the name. I don't think I've consumed any of his content, but
He's I only have by accident, and he was talking. about how, Iran doesn't even really have the capability to make warheads, let alone ICBM. So he's like, the idea that, like, even if they had, like, weapons grade uranium, like they keep claiming, they're like, it doesn't do them any good. They can't put it on a fucking bomb. Like, they were like, this is just the first of like 15 fucking steps needed to send a nuke just to, Saudi Arabia or Israel, let alone the United States. So he was like, the idea that they pose whatever a possible threat to us is just, it's just fantasy, just like it was with Iraq. And I mean, Afghanistan, at least you can say the fucking, they were hiding there, like Al Qaeda. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail
No,
there
you're
either,
yeah.
but
I mean that is a good point. These are not the most capable people. I mean, I, I yeah, their technology is really not that impressive. So they have a really vast quantity though of missiles and bombs. So
sure.
they have a bunch. They're certainly a threat to Israel, but they're not by any stretch of the imagination a threat to the U.S. So I guess kind of one last thought as we're kind of wrapping it up. Uh, a lot has been said of, much has been said about American decline and the coming of the multipolar world and all that. And on some level, some of that is valid. Like China probably is. China is certainly getting relatively more powerful in comparison to the U.S. But I just feel like, and this is an argument I'm stealing from Richard Spencer. Uh, I feel like decline is kind of like afflicting every nation on Earth. I mean, birth rates are dropping. Competence is decreasing. Russia can't even take Ukraine. I kind of just feel like even though on some levels fighting Iran could be disastrous because of American incompetence, I just feel like everyone else is so much more incompetent that optimistically, I think maybe we'd be okay. I mean, obviously, I don't think it's good, but I think if there's a silver lining in this, like maybe the axis of resistance has proven itself to just be so pathetic time and time again. I'm a little optimistic. I think if we do strike Iran, I think honestly, I mean they're just not going to be able to do much about it, and I think it'll probably be all okay for us. Basically, what say you?
I don't even know how that can be said. I mean, after Iraq, right? Like, Iraq can't hold a candle to the United States. You know what I mean? Like, and that was one of the more disastrous things ever. Like, I honestly can't think of any U.S. foreign policy that has like totally benefited us and went completely smooth. You know,
Yeah,
I
but
I just can't. I just
the
can't
the
think
thing
of
with
anything.
Iraq, I mean, I don't think an incursion into Iran will be good, but we're not going to have ground troops.
Probably
It's
not.
probably not. It'll probably be a Syria model where we just continue bombing them until Assad falls and then ISIS takes over, or maybe it'll be like a Libya model where we just destabilize the government, kill all the officials, and then let the Kurds and the Iran, normal Iranians fight it out, and then it becomes a failed state. Uh, you know, I don't think what we did to Libya was good, but is is the state of Libya or the state of Syria really affecting us all too much right now? I mean, I guess during the reign of ISIS, you could say the state of Syria, uh, you know, what was going on in Syria kind of affected the West, but I mean, besides the random few terrorist attacks, I mean, we weren't really hurt by it.
Yeah, but
Uh,
don't you listen, I just see the capabilities of Iran. I mean, comparing Libya as a state to Iran is just laughable. I mean, don't get me wrong, Libya is closer to Iran than Iran is to us, right? But that doesn't change the fact that the impact that Iran can have, right? I mean, if they close off the Strait of Hormuz, if they start blowing up oil fields or start shooting down oil tankers, like we got a fucking problem, right? And that's not just for us, that's for the entire world oil market. So I think you're underestimating the potential for that, at least. I mean, listen, I'm not saying it's going to knock the United States into a stone age. And I broadly agree with what you said about how, like, we might be incompetent, but it seems like we might be the most incompetent or the most competent and competent of the G7, right? So it it doesn't really excuse the fact that this will be extremely bad, I think. Or at least there is potential for that.